Good evening. This is going to be our Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting. It is now 6 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and get started. Planning and Zoning Commission agenda for our regular meeting is going to be held on May 22nd at 6 o'clock p.m. in the City Council Chambers at 405 Municipal Drive, Kennedale, Texas 76060. Madam Secretary, can I get a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Place 1, Milkowski.
Here.
Place 2, Brown.
Present.
Place 4, Jones.
Present.
And place 5, Martinez is absent. Sir, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. I appreciate you. For item 2 here, after roll call, we're going to go ahead and do the public comment. The Planning and Zoning Commission welcomes comments from the public. Those wishing to speak must sign in prior to the start of the meeting. Speakers may speak on any topic, whether on the agenda or not. The Planning and Zoning Commission cannot act upon, discuss issues raised, or make any decisions at this time. Speakers under citizen comments shall observe a 3-minute time limit. Inquiries regarding matters not listed on the agenda may be referred to staff for research and possible future action by the board. Madam Secretary, do we have anybody?
No, sir, we do not have anybody for
Okay,
public
we're
comment.
going to open that at 6:02, and we're going to close that also at 6:02. Moving right along to regular session. Item A, consent agenda. These matters have appeared before previous agendas, requiring little or no deliberation, and are considered routine and minuscule tasks. If discussion is desired, items may be removed into a separate consideration. Item 1 is going to be the approval for the minutes of April 24th, 2025 regular meeting. Are there any discussions at this time?
No discussions.
All right. Well, that was pretty simple. Can I entertain a motion?
I make a motion that we accept the April 27th regular meeting minutes as printed.
Any second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And likewise, all opposed? None? We're going to pass that 3-0 to accept the minutes from April 24th. Item B, items for individual consideration, discuss, and/or actions. Item 1 is going to be PZ Case 2502 to consider an approval of a preliminary plat creating Lot 1-R1, Lots 2-39, Block 1, Lot 40 HOA, Lot 41 Pond, Block 1, Kennedale Oaks Addition, being 6.180 acres of land situated within the Jesse B. Renfro Survey, abstract number 1260, City of Kennedale, Tarrant County, Texas, hereon to be referred to as Case 2502. Staff?
Good evening, Commissioners. Pleasure to be with you again tonight. For this particular case, it's a preliminary plat for a townhome plan development that was approved a while back as far as the zoning goes. It's been in engineering review. Now they're ready to submit for preliminary plat. It's met all the zoning requirements of the city, and we do recommend approval with the condition that the detention pond, there's further engineering that has to be done on the detention pond to meet certain standards, and so, but we're ready to recommend approval for that with the condition that the engineering of the pond will be sorted out during final engineering review. So with that, happy to answer any questions that you have.
Has that engineering been discussed with the developer and
Correct.
indicating that they are amenable to it?
Absolutely. So they're in constant communication about the project, and they understand that there's a little bit more review that has to be done on the city staff, I'll say in particular, as well. So they've done all the preliminary engineering. They actually went further than most folks, and they provided full engineering with just some other caveats as well. So they're actually going to be ahead of the game when they go into the final engineering stage. And just the limits of the detention pond, from what I understand, there's a a difference in methodology on how they come up with certain numbers. And so that's what they're working through. But to meet our statutory requirements for the 30 days, we felt comfortable and we needed to bring it to you for action. And we also felt comfortable recommending approval with that condition that that issue would be ironed out during final engineering review. They will return for final plat at a later date, and prior to final plat, that issue will be resolved.
So is the issue that it's not large enough, or that trying to calculate the appropriate storage?
That's correct. So as it's currently, and they can probably speak more to that if you have a specific question as far as what the numbers are. The city's consultant believes it may need to be increased, but coming to that arrival is dependent upon certain models and the numbers that come out of that. And so they did recommend, hey, we go ahead and recommend its approval. It's very minor from both parties, city staff, and also their engineer design. They have no concerns with getting that addressed. And so our recommendation would be to approve with the condition that the drainage be approved prior to final plat.
So are they looking to potentially increase, is city looking to increase the size of it? And will the increase in the size of it result in fewer of the townhomes being built?
No, so there won't be any, there's not a concern that they would, there'd be less lots. In fact, this site is actually under the density requirements. It may need to get deeper, if not wider. So it's an area calculation, so we can either go wider. If it goes wider, then it may get into some of their open green space and dog park and things like, some of those amenities. If it goes deeper, that's what they're trying to figure out. But I don't believe that we're going to lose any particular lots.
So you're requesting a conditional approval?
Correct. So the state law says that we need to either approve, recommend approval, recommend denial, or approve with conditions and cite whatever those conditions would be. So in this case, we're recommending approval with the condition that the pond engineering be resolved prior to final plat.
And is there recourse for non-performance?
If that doesn't occur, they just can't, we won't accept their plat essentially to an extent because they haven't met the city standard. If they decide they want to turn in a plat, they have 30 days. We have 30 days to take action on it, and if the engineering isn't resolved, then we would recommend denial at that point. Right, so there's give and take on that, and but that's on a worst case scenario. The relationship right now is going really well. Communication's going really well, and so we're excited to see this come to fruition.
What time frame are y'all looking at? Is the final pond density issue going to be resolved before it goes before council?
That's correct. Well, the preliminary plat at this stage, this is the only step. And so after this, when they obtain preliminary plat approval, the full engineering review site, we do that under a site development permit. Once they've met that standard, we can go ahead and issue that permit. That's also sort of a clearing grade where they can start moving dirt. When they submit a final plat, they can't submit it, or we don't want them to submit it if the full engineering hasn't already been approved. And so the time frame on that, though, they have 2 years to get to final plat. And so that's the time frame. I don't believe it's going to be that long. In fact, they can probably, I don't want to speak for them, but I imagine they'll probably want to start moving dirt pretty soon.
I'm going to open this up for a public discussion. Do we have any speakers, ma'am? Be 6:08.
No, sir, no speakers have signed.
Okay, then we're going to close that back up, 6:08. Any discussion amongst the commission? No details?
Conditional
Just conditional, yeah,
recommendation, conditional approval, recommend a conditional approval.
you're asking, yeah. All right, well, entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we conditionally recommend the approval of PZ case 2502.
Second? With condition. You have to state the
with
condition.
condition.
Yes.
That the engineering on the pond has to be completed prior to the final plat.
Second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor? No opposed? Ma'am, passes 3-0. All right, item B2, PZ case 2507, to consider a proposed conditional use permit as required by section 24.29C as a Unified Developmental Code, or UDC, for the battery energy storage systems, a new land use located at 509 South New Hope Road, Cannon EC Survey Abstract 378, Track 1EE and A1327 TRS 2B01 and 2B04 of the City of Kennedale, Tarrant County, Texas 76060, to be further discussed as case 2507.
Well, we want to welcome back the applicants for this PZ case 2507. If you recall, it's the Cypress Creek Battery Energy Storage System, also referred to as Fort Watt. Last time you met, we discussed this, and the item was tabled. They've returned with a team as well to answer any questions that the commission has. I'm happy to go into any details of the previous staff report. Other than that, I'm happy to hand over the floor to the applicants. I did receive your submittal to you guys. Is that a different one or same one as before?
I made a few.
Okay, I've got that pulled up for you. Okay.
All right, sir, we did have one member here that was not present last meeting. Can you just quickly go back over your staff's assertion and recommendation? So he is aware of that on record.
Yes, sir, certainly. So if you recall, this project is a return from the previous, they come by the city, I want to say about a year ago, and first presented, and they actually mentioned then and now that they're willing to come back and take as much time as needed to answer the community's questions regarding their project. But just a brief overview of the staff report, where the site is located. It's at 509 South New Hope Road. It's a split zone property. And so the front half of it, zone residential. The back half of it, where the site itself would be located and is being proposed, is zoned industrial. We do believe that that is an appropriate site for that location. However, as we noted in our staff report, it's not consistent with the future land use plan, and that whole part of Kennedale is the future land use plan envisions residential development, and so because of that, we didn't recommend approval, or we didn't offer a recommendation in that sense. There are some other caveats that I believe that were discussed as far as emergency management response, things of that nature that the fire chief spoke to last time. He is here as well, answer any questions that you may have. And I believe they also have a team themselves that can speak specifically to their emergency management plans and responses. So I believe we have all parties here that I think they can answer any question that the commission has. And if I'm not mistaken, I think they're looking forward to presenting for that. But that's the gist of my staff report. And then if they have some new exhibits they'd like to present, I'd like to offer them the floor for that.
I just want one clarification. So we are stating that currently the land use of this proposed area is consistent with its actual current zoning at the time. However, it would be inconsistent with future land use, being that this would be a conditional and hypothetically temporary. That means the condition, the future land use would actually still be capable of enduring beyond the use of this land, where it comes down to conclusion and goes from its inception to drawdown.
Correct. So that's actually a great way of putting it. I think where you would want to site something like this would be likely in your industrially zoned property, and that's where this is, the property where they've chosen is zoned industrial. The caveat is just it's centrally located into town, right? Future land use wise, when we look at how that area develops over the next 20, 30 years, we envision residential. Now, does this project impede that development or prohibit that development or enhance or bring about the capability of installing infrastructure to support that development? That's a decision for P&Z and council. But it is, I believe, slated to be a 20-year project. So in that sense, I don't know what I'll be doing in 20 years, but I imagine till then there'll probably be some new batteries installed, but it would eventually, site would be decommissioned, and then there's still potential that it could be developed as residential. But the way you put it actually is something that I don't think I've mentioned before, so it's a good point.
Any further questions for the staff before we let them proceed? All right, sir.
Okay, in 20 years, I'd have like 60 years in TMRS, sir. So I'd qualify for the medical, I think, at that point.
Was there additional presentation you wanted to provide?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure if I'm stepping on any kind of public comments.
There are no public comments at this time, correct?
We do have three
Can we have three?
requests to speak, sir.
I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and let them speak, and that way you can answer to them after, if you don't mind.
I'll answer any questions.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and open that at 6:17, public comments, man.
Please bear with me, I'm working on this.
Sorry, folks, I threw a curveball letter.
No, you're quite all right. Okay. So hard to see this.
That's best.
Okay. The first speaker will be David McMillan.
Mr.
And you will
McMillan, just
have-
go ahead and state your name, your
sir.
address, and you
You
have
will
3
have
minutes.
3 minutes, sir. I'm sorry, I cannot get that timer up.
Okay, I won't need three. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
David McMillan, 3830 Kennedale, New Hope Road. I'm a property owner down on the south of the proposed location for this operation. First of all, I'm not against the project in itself, but the location, as you're aware, as Nathan just mentioned, that area down there is on the future land use plan is designated and has been designated going back to 2013 at least for future residential. The first comp plan that was introduced as a result of the Imagine Kennedale program from 2009 indicated that was future residential. It still is. It was confirmed in the previous comprehensive plan and the new updated comprehensive plan as well, and the new future land use plan. The primary issue, in my opinion, is that it's located inside the TIRZ, which is the tax incremental financing zone, which is the area south and west of the train tracks, starting on New Hope Road south to Hudson Village Creek, the south side of the south border of the city. The tax incremental zone is designed to facilitate development inside the zone, as I'm sure you folks probably are aware. It was created in 2013. It's slated to end in 2038. So the clock is ticking, and there has not been a lot of activity down there for a variety of reasons, but this is not going to help the situation, in my opinion. Currently, there are approximately 200 acres at least of buildable, developable property in that area, with a TAD market value of $7 million, $7.2 million as of the 2025 TAD. The estimates for growth in that area will easily top out at $100 million. we had a project that would have been 70 million that's been put to bed, that's not going to pass, that didn't pass council the other night. So well over $100 million of potential residential development in that area could be affected by this project. One of the members asked if the project would deter future residential building, and last month, or the last meeting, and Mr. Gonzalez responded that that could be a possibility. I'm puzzled why the city would take that chance. It has an opportunity with the TERS to build. The future residential in that area will help the city move forward and grow, as well as bring in consumers to support local businesses, increase sales tax revenue to help build this infrastructure in the city. So the staff didn't recommend the conditional use permit. I agree with the staff's assessment, and I'm opposed to the granting of the conditional use permit for this location. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Next speaker, David Murray.
Hello, I'm David Murray. I live at 407 Kevin Miller Road, in Kennedale. I am supporting the project. I did not, unfortunately, get to come to the meeting last year when it was first proposed and declined, but I did watch the video of that, and it seems to me like at least one of the large concerns was the fire risk. And so I brought up some interesting statistics I thought you might ease some people's minds. I noticed one of the people in the previous video had compared it to a Tesla fire. And as a Tesla owner myself, I'm a little bit annoyed sometimes at the media representation of those fires, because I know they're hard to put out, but they love to report on those fires where they don't report on gas car fires, because nobody cares about that, right? So it kind of gives a selection bias that gives a lot of people a false impression that these fires are very common. So here's some interesting statistics for you on that. Tesla has produced 7.7 million cars worth worldwide. There have only been 300-ish documented cases of Tesla fires, and that includes arson and forest fires and all that kind of stuff. So they're actually extremely rare. But most Teslas use NCM chemistry, which is very different from the chemistry that these people are going to be using, which is LFP. Now, here's another interesting statistic for you on that. So Tesla also produces some cars with LFP, usually on their base models, because they're not as energy dense, but they're cheaper. I actually own such a vehicle with an LFP battery. And I did some Googling on statistics of LFP Tesla fires. There have been 300,000-ish LFP batteries put in Tesla vehicles, and of those 300-ish fires we talked about, the number of LFP fires has been 0. There's never been a documented case of a Tesla with an LFP battery catching fire. So I just thought that would be an interesting statistic to talk about if you're worried about the fire risk. I honestly think this facility would be more likely destroyed by a meteorite impact than it would be catching on fire. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say. So thank you.
Next speaker, Stephanie York. Stephanie Yori.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie Yori. I live at 325 Spring Branch Lane. Dear Planning and Zoning Commission, good evening, and thank you for your time in advance. My name is Stephanie Yori, and I'm writing to express my support for the Battery Energy Storage System, BESS, in our proposed city by Cypress Creek Renewables. The project will bring significant tax revenue into our community, providing much-needed funds for street repairs, extra educational technology for our schools, and a ladder truck for our brave firefighters. The city's impressive school district was the inspiration and catalyst for our family's move to Kennedale, Texas. And we have supported our close-knit community in a variety of ways, from volunteering to working for the city. Kennedale's strength lies with its people. This combined with our proximity to the DFW Metroplex's major draws, makes us an attractive choice for families seeking a bright future. We're uniquely positioned for success. Cypress Creek Renewables' long-term partnership with Kennedale is poised to drive transformative growth, fostering a brighter future for our community. Their philanthropic efforts are already enriching our community through the local Rotary Club and educational scholarships. In conclusion, our partnership with Cypress Creek Renewables will not only enhance our community and benefit our residents, but also contribute to drive sustained growth and development. These initiatives will have positive, far-reaching impacts extending beyond local boundaries. Thank you again for your time, your consideration, and your support of this project.
Thank you, ma'am.
No further speakers.
All right, we'll go ahead and close that up at 6:28.
Point of order.
Sure.
I just wanted to clarify for the applicants. I believe they signed, the speakers signed up to speak during the public comment portion of it, so they would have spoken earlier already, but when we got to that point, I think we assumed it was going to be a public hearing. It wasn't a public hearing for this one, but I'm still happy to hear that they were able to get a chance to speak, but that was that discrepancy, if that makes sense, on that. So we should have called them up earlier. I just wanted to make that point for the record. Thanks.
Come on up.
All right, well, hey y'all, thanks for having us back and letting us come out and speak to you again. I'll see if I can switch over this screen, but there's not too much different that we wanted to talk to you about. Most of what we've wanted to say, we've come before you and told you previously. The fact that we think that this is, impeccably well zoned. It's in an industrial district. It's got industrial on, 3 sides of it. We don't think that's changing anytime soon, especially with that north side being the electric substation that, we're planning to tap into. Like one of the citizens said, we continue to be involved in the community. Just last week, we were lucky enough to get to be at Kennedale High School and awarding a $2,500 scholarship to one of the graduating seniors there. Like I've said before, we are hoping that you welcome us into the community, and part of that is, we want to be good neighbors. And so this is, our start of the sort of good neighbor engagement that we start before the project even comes online and, continues for all of our projects throughout their operation. I know that there were a lot of questions and concerns about the safety of the project. We've got a whole team of folks here tonight, including our third-party response, who will be sort of, leading that emergency response should anything go wrong. I'll stress again that, we don't expect anything to happen, but, as the chief has said many times, it's, his job to prepare for the worst-case scenario, and so that's what we want to do, is we want to be prepared. So if there's any questions on the safety of the batteries, the chemistry, the construction, et cetera, we've got plenty of information on that. If there's questions on how our response would look, we've got the team that would actually be running the response here to answer any of those questions. Like we've said, it can be a great boon to the community, both from our continued charitable engagement, but also, the substantial tax revenue. $150 million in assessed value creates a whole lot of taxes coming into the city, and getting that out of, 10 acres, that's, I would ballpark it at maybe 300 homes worth sitting of value and property tax sitting on just 10 acres of property. So it seems to be a pretty good bang for your buck for this, and doesn't even take up the whole parcel. The whole parcel is about 50 acres, and we're sitting on about 10. So it leaves the rest of the parcel for continued development as well. So with that being said, you guys have heard me talk about this before, and you've had plenty of time to go and do some research, come up with more questions. We forwarded you all our information on, how our project is different than some of the attention-grabbing headlines that you might see when you go online. So if there's any questions about that or anything else, you've got me and the whole team here to answer anything that might come up.
So a 20-year project, I'm going to assume that technology is going to advance considerably in 20 years. How would that affect this location, this battery farm? Would it be retrofitted? Would it be upgraded? Would it be just kind of remaining the same? And how would that look as far as the processes?
Yeah, so just like the battery in your phone, all batteries kind of wear down over time. They lose charge a little more quickly over time, the more that we charge them and discharge them. And it's no different with these. And so what we do for all of our projects is, over the life of the project, we continually go in and replace those batteries, swap them out for new ones, and we're always, staying on top of the newest technology possible. Both, what's benefiting us safety-wise, energy density-wise, economically-wise. So we're always making sure that we're putting our best foot forward when it comes to replacing and upgrading the batteries throughout the life of the project.
So if any of that technology changes, we're going to be partnering with our first responders on how to keep up with those changes and how to respond to them. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, absolutely. Like we've mentioned before, our emergency preparedness plan starts before the project comes online. It starts with training for all of the responders, not only here, but in surrounding communities should, mutual aid be desired. And goes on, we provide that training before the project comes online, and then we continue to provide annual training throughout the life of the project as long as it's operational here. So any changes in technology would lead to updates in that plan and changes to that annual training that's ongoing.
Would you build a home in front of the project you're talking about?
I don't know if you can trust me, if you see that I'm biased, but I actually have lived right next to large batteries before. And, the only real downside that I found with those was the view. But luckily for all of our projects, we maintain as much natural vegetation as we can, and then put what we call vegetative screening. So we plant shrubs, we plant trees, et cetera, all around the project so that it's basically not able to be seen from outside of the confines of the actual project. And so if you take away that aspect of it, which we do our best to do, I would have no problem living next to something like this. It's the same as like one of the citizens said, parking a Tesla electric battery in your garage. It's as safe as the technology can be, right? So I'd feel comfortable with it.
There's already examples of the vegetative screening within Kennedale, right? Like there's oil pad sites that are in the city that have, brick fences all the way around them, and then also some of the vegetative screening. So this would be something that this is not a new concept of developing the vegetative screening to reduce the eyesore from a project like this.
Right. This is pretty common for all sorts of developers, and it's part of that sort of being a good neighbor is to, bring as much resiliency to the community and to the grid as we can, while, trying to bring down the levels of, disturbance that we can. That's why we make sure that, no sound, exits the barriers of our project perimeter. That's why we make sure to plant this vegetative screening all around so that it can't be seen from outside of the project boundaries. We're trying to be as unobtrusive as possible while bringing as much benefit as possible.
How far would the setback be from that vegetative screening?
From the vegetative screening to the project boundary,
Yes.
we normally tend to plant it about 5 to, anywhere from 5 to 15 feet outside of our fences. So it gives it, a good clearance. We make sure that nothing is, potentially growing up and over the project area. But we want it to, pretty well seal off so that, no one is potentially disturbed by, seeing a chain link fence or seeing, these battery containers that we show here.
So you made mention earlier that this area, or this lot that you are looking to develop, it's about 50 acres, right?
Yes, sir.
And one of the comments from staff is that this acreage, or this plot is future land use for residential. However, this plot of land has a massive floodplain that goes into it. There's also a right-of-way that needs to be dedicated for future road of Little Road. And so y'all are developing on about 8 acres of that land. So do you have a photo within your slide deck that would kind of show how much of the land is actually being utilized?
Yeah, so I can, if we can see, this mouse is a little hard to see, so I'll see if I can zoom in a little bit here. So this area here, up to the north, you can see the electrical substation. Highlighted in red here, we see the extension of Little School Road. To your point, the large sort of middle of this parcel does have a 100-year floodplain running through it. So that's what we think about in these, once in every 100 years floods. You would expect some water to come through the middle area of this parcel, which is why we've dedicated this bottom part of the parcel to where we're actually going to build that 8 to 10 acres out of that 50 acres. So this is where our project would be on the south side. We're staying out of the floodplain, making sure that we leave room for Little School Road. We initially had cited this plan to put it on the north side of the parcel, as close to the substation as we could. But then after working with the city, learning that this road extension was desired, we decided to move it to make sure that we can both play nicely together. Like I said, we want to be good neighbors as much as we can. So we're really trying to stay as far out of the way as possible here and away from as many residences as possible.
So I think this question is really more for Nathan, but we had a comment about the TERS. And I believe that TERS is about to expire. Is that correct?
Excuse me, as far as I understand it, it'll expire the 2030s, around that time frame, if it doesn't get renewed, right? So cities could renew it. I don't think there's a set time frame on that. So I imagine that's a discussion that council will consider as it gets closer to that, whether we've had development or whether we have it in that area.
And can you please go over what a TERS is, very generally?
Yeah, do my best. TERS stands for Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone. So essentially, any development within that zone that is established by the council and EDCs and things like that, the value, as value increases, the taxing is actually capped at a certain level to incentivize development within that. And then after a certain time period, the difference in the two between, as the value grows, that funding could be used to reinvest into that specific area for infrastructure and developments and parks and streets and things like that. So you incentivize a developer coming in, buildings in that specific location, and then, of course, they front a lot of that money up front out of their pocket, their costs, and then there's often mechanisms where they can be reimbursed through that funding that is established over time.
So, but with this being in a TERS, the tax revenue that is being generated in this area will be going back into this area. And one of the issues with the development of the old racetrack was that we didn't have the extension of Little Road. The bridge was too expensive. So having a property like this where the tax revenue can go back into this zone would make it a lot more easy and feasible to build that Little Road extension. Is that correct?
In theory, any development that has assessed value in land improvements, that would go in, it would go towards redeveloping that particular area. So I would say that's correct. I guess that's more of a discussion about whether this equipment and what type of land improvements that they'll see there. There's obviously, they've got some information as far as tax benefits based on those land improvements. I don't know if most of that is tax related to land improvements as opposed to the, I would say, call it, business property tax. Property tax, then you have, the equipment and things like that, of inventory. I'm not a tax professional. I TurboTax it, like everybody else, right? But that's my basic understanding of it. And if there's any more specific tax questions to that, I know they've provided some good information as far as to speak to that, what that looks like.
It kind of falls in my open-ended question. Again, like you mentioned, you're not exactly the financial powerhouse of the city. So with that being said, I'm just going to ask this as an open-ended question, especially with Mr. Hall sitting here. You can, of course, mull it over with the council as well. He might even have an answer for it. I'm looking at what would be the trade-off if, let's just say this was not utilized. How long does this land sit dormant? And let's just say optimistically before this would actually be developed to where we would actually capture and foresee some of this return on investment versus using what we have right now or have in front of us right now as a temporary, or even, it can be, we call it temporary, 20 years or so, possibly longer, that would actually be a known investment back to the city. So I don't know if that's something that, obviously that's a city council discussion, but I definitely wanted to bring it up as kind of a trade-off discussion. What are we giving up versus what are we gathering as a city?
I think that's a valid question. I think that's a good question. I can't speak to potential down the road. I can tell you what you're not getting, right? And this parcel, like other parcels in this area, have sat undeveloped for quite some time despite approved plans, agreements, and things like that, right? So we do recommend development in this area. And again, our recommendation is simply based on the future land use plan, as it calls out residential. We also state, though, that in the current zoning, this isn't appropriate for the current zoning. So I want to say that, but I think the major benefit, and this was a major point and a point I think of concession as well, is that the Little School Road extension is cutting through the landowner's property, both his parcels, and he's open to providing right-of-way dedication to see that road so that that part of town can develop. I will say that as that bridge crosses the rail, the height of that bridge, we're not going to see that red pathway. You're not going to see any roads coming off that red pathway because that'll be 20 feet in the air, 25 feet in the air. So there's not going to be any off-ramps. I grew up in the Bay Area, right? So we got those all over. I don't think we're going to see that there, and particularly to the north because you got the Encore station. And this bridge is actually chasing the grade So it's a longer bridge. So the area where they've chosen on the industrial site, we imagine that will be utilized even in the future for future industrial uses because there are some physical roadblocks, meaning the creek. It's expensive to cross creeks, to design bridges across the road. But low water crossings, things like that, for any other types of development as well. This one included, but of course, if they've got the funding and the willingness to install that infrastructure, have at it, I'd say. But I hope I answered your question. I know it was open-ended, but
It's just to get the point out there and have that thought process started between now and the next city council's discussion with this. And you kind of hit on another point of this is in order for this to actually come to fruition, there would have to be some sort of an infrastructure. I can't say it's going to what level, but something is going to have to be brought forth to even establish this location. So in other words, I would say the framework of a type of infrastructure would start finding its way into that area. So let's just say this passes on 20 years from now, we already have some sort of a bones, if you will, to utilize that area, whether it remain industrial or is converted over and rezoned. So, I mean, to me, it's kind of again, we're going back to between now and year 20, or shall I say, to break ground to year 20.
yeah.
Are we losing something by allowing this to happen? Because there's a trade-off and there's a risk. So is it high reward or is it, a high risk? So that's something I want to say the city council is going to have to look at deeply and say,
If I can add, there's two potential catalysts for this type of part of town to see development. Well, there was three. The first has already occurred, and that was establishing the TERS, right? The second and third could happen at the same time. Either one could happen. One of those catalysts for development is this road. This road is key, not only to providing access and egress for existing neighborhoods to not get stuck at the train tracks, provide another pathway through town, but development that it comes off of that, either on the Parkway side, as it crosses that area, which right now is, there's not much out there but golf carts, and that area now becomes a major intersection as it connects to New Hope Road. That itself becomes another area, a catalyst for development. The only other catalyst for development would be a major rezone of some large tracts of land out there to spur development. But with that, they're going to need a way to get out, right? We don't want everyone stuck at the train track. So I would my recommendation, and I don't know what that's worth in this town, but this bridge is a key to that. Whether it's the city pays for it or it's dedicated. And so right now there's a large transportation initiative to see that, not just in Kennedale, but recent developments have shown this is becoming a Tarrant County initiative, and the COG's going to get involved. And so the city manager will probably speak more to that with council if that question comes up. But, trade-offs, you got a part of town that could be utilized in the interim and trade-off for the bridge. That's again why we bring it to you for recommendation, and then we'll let council make that decision. So, thank you.
all right, and that's the point I just want to bring forth and on record. The access point for that bridge in the first place is going to be the egress and access point to that general land use in the end game. And then the other thing we have to look at is time to completion for that particular bridge project is how long. So there's another part of it right there. That's not going to pop up tomorrow. You're talking years.
Sure.
So in the meantime, is it the best utilization the land could be put forth when it comes to this? That's going to be the best use for the city itself. And that's the question I'm really looking at, saying, yeah, it's not necessarily meeting the FLUP, but is it meeting the need for the city at this moment? And does it prevent further use as are envisioned down the road. And that's one of the things I just, like I said, I'd bring that forth in front of the city council, let them hear that. Darrell can take it back to them, have that discussion. Call me any name in the book if he wants, that's fine. But that's my piece on that. I appreciate you for entertaining that. And you got a future use in a tax man's world. Sorry we hijacked you there.
No, that's fine. They're great questions, and, you know, we think that, you know, having worked with the city for the, you know, location of where this road extension is going, we think that all of the, you know, the bang for your buck that you get with the tax revenue coming in off of 10 acres of use can go a long way towards helping to bring that bridge to fruition a little sooner. But I wanted to obviously open it up to, you know, to all of you, of course. And there were a lot of questions last time on safety, on battery chemistry, on the response plan. I know that it sounds new to a lot of people, but the reality is that these have been, you know, built all over the country, especially, you know, in Texas. There was a battery installation of the exact same technology in Arlington that opened last year. So it's, you know, it's not so new to those of us in the industry, but I know that it is new, and so there's a lot of learning to be had and questions to be had for the general public. So if there's any sort of questions about the technology, about the response plan, or anything else, obviously want to hear your takes.
I think I've beat that horse to death over the last year and a half, so either one of you guys. Thank you very much. Sir.
Okay, thank you.
So discussion?
I think that this is a great project. I know that we have some issues with it being incompatible with the future land use map, but as I look at this plot of land, it's hard for me to even imagine that residential is even going to go here between the floodplains and the road. It's very, can it happen? Maybe, if once we get that dense, but we're not that dense yet. So I think that when we're talking about what are we giving up, nothing's been developed here for a while, even with this TERS. This TERS has been sitting there for 13 years, and it hasn't spurred the type of development that we've needed it to spur. We've had multiple other entities come in trying to develop the old racetrack, and some of the citizens' comments are that there's no access. We don't have the road. We can't get over the train tracks. We need this road. And I think that with this project going here, utilizing this plot of land that is, of this 50 acres, they're able to utilize the 10 acres of it in a safe way that is going to provide a valid use, a needed use for our energy grid. And I think it's a good project.
Jeremy, thoughts? Okay. Well, I'm going to echo Andrew. Again, my thing is what do we have now in our hand versus what's sitting out there in the bush? And we know that saying. I think a lot of this is, you've got folks that have been here for years. We're looking at newer technology compared to what the rest of the world has kind of come up with. It's misunderstood, and it may be something that either gets used to or it doesn't. And I think that's kind of a discussion up there at the city council. Same thing with the whole idea of, what is the trade-off? Is it economically feasible to give up 20 years of TERS initiative, and then, whether or not this will be, if that'll even be extended? I'm not sure if that's going to be moved. Again, that's kind of out of our wheelhouse down at this level. But they're great questions, I think, that need to go up to the city council. They need to look at this. The citizens themselves, and this is something I think I've kind of foot stomped a little bit, a lot of our citizens they have opinions and they're very strong. I'm sure you've noticed this by now. However, you'll also see that a lot of them do not like to come in a formal setting and ask questions that they may or may not feel comfortable with doing so. And this is something that I've always encouraged other developers. I say the same thing to you guys. Reach out to the public. Make yourself known, make yourself available to be able to ask those questions, because those same questions are going to be put out there to the city council and ultimately going to decide the ultimate success or failure of this project. So that's the takeaway I have on that. And if there's nothing else up here, you still reserving? Okay.
Basically, you said what I would say, as far as, bird in the hand, basically you've reiterated things that I've been thinking, bird in the hand worth two in the bush. We have this project now that could bring potentially the TERS, the tax benefit from the TERS now, as opposed to, down the line, we don't have anything else. That area not being conducive to development right now for residential. And as it stands, the portion that they want to build on is zoned industrial. So it wouldn't be anything that we would be, violating.
Right. That was a discussion I had was, at first the UDC didn't foresee this type of conditional use as far as a battery farm. I mean, that's something that the folks above are prior to us didn't envision that. Hey, a battery farm can come to the city of Kennedale. That's kind of like saying, and I think I made this comment last year, we have the internet. When they developed the telegraph, they didn't see the internet. Guess what we're using? The Telegraph Act 1924 to run the internet. That's kind of where we started with the UDC. Now we brought that in here. But our future land use, again, is envisioning things that wouldn't necessarily be put forth in an industry that we might not have said, hey, that exists and that could be here. So again, that's another discussion. I want to say it needs to go make sure the public is well aware of it, the pros and cons of it. How does it affect us for trade-off on our tax base? The use of it now, does it affect the use of it later? There's so many questions, unfortunately, that are not really answerable in our commission's level. So those are the things I definitely want to put out there as open-ended, things for the public to go back, ask the city council members, discuss it with them, meet with our developers. If they have those questions, they need to ask those things as well. If there's those concerns, those things are going to come. And they're either going to make or break this situation or this particular case. So that is my input. Anybody else has anything? We can entertain a motion at this time.
I motion we recommend approval.
I second.
Okay, all in favor of that? My only caveat is like I said, the developer does go out and discuss this makes himself available to the industry. But with that being said, all in favor of recommending approval for case 2507 for the temporary energy battery storage facility? All in favor? And no opposed, so it will be 3-0, ma'am. And this brings us to the last thing on the agenda, discuss the updated Unified Developmental Code draft. Rise and shine, sir.
Okay, so this last item is a discussion of our Unified Development Code update. I provided you that draft. I hope you've had an opportunity to review that. We're not, no action needed. It's just an ongoing conversation we've been having the last 6 months in town, probably longer than that. I'd say probably more than a year. Our comp plan says, our new comp plan says we got to update our development code to realign with the vision of the comp plan, so that's what we've attempted to do. What we'll need to do after tonight's discussion is we'll need a public notice, any changes to zoning. And that's got to be everybody, every landowner in town has to be notified. There's some new state law requirements. So I imagine we'll probably utilize a mailing service or something like that. So we'll get postcards out to folks to just notify them of the upcoming meeting that we'll have before the Planning and Zoning Commission before you take action on it. And then we'll do the same for City Council. Just recently, there's been discussion about having a town hall workshop here in June to invite the public to come out, learn about zoning, learn about what these updates are. Again, we'll have public, before you take action on it, we're going to have a public hearing like we're required to by law. But I believe there's some that want have a little bit more communication with the public, so we want to do that as well. And I'm looking forward to that opportunity. But as far as the updates go, I'll just kind of give you a brief rundown of what those are. We have revised land use tables. We have not created any nonconformity. So we didn't want to remove a land use that you could do today that you can't do tomorrow once this gets updated, right? Because then property owners, landowners have vested rights already in the established zoning. And if we remove those things, we create nonconformities. So we've done our best to look at every land use, particularly commercial, looking at our industrial uses. We're not trying to run any particular industry out of town with this. What we have done is expanded land uses in certain districts. What I mean by that is the state right now is considering making accessory dwelling units permitted by right in every residential district, which there's discussion about that. We've had that discussion here as well. But let's say someone wants to build a room in the back, separate detached structure for their aging mother-in-law, grandma, and they want to bring them there right now. There's a little bit of red tape that's involved in that. Is it permitted in the zoning district? Well, it depends. Right, and so what we want to do is just make it a little easier for folks to have that conversation, have that availability. Our accessory dwelling unit ordinance or section of our ordinance is pretty specific, and it's actually pretty stout when you compare that to other cities. But one of the changes that we've done is we said, okay, why not make that permitted? In every residential district that we have. Now, we haven't included that in the multifamily districts. Some of the higher density ones doesn't, and I guess it's a decision that council will have to make. Do I put an apartment complex and then put an ADU in the back? It just doesn't work often like that with development. But in residential, why not allow them to do that? Particularly since we have other standards that protect setbacks and fire separation distances and things like that. So that's one of the changes that we've made on the land use tables. We've also expanded some mixed use, upper level loft apartment uses that would be permitted within our commercial districts, certain commercial districts, to establish a mixed use by right. And that's to encourage, that's not allowing somebody to come in and build an apartment complex, but let's say someone wanted to do a mixed use, they could do that in some commercial districts. And so that's one of the things that we've discussed. Our comp plan discusses that as well. In fact, it has a specific term. It talks about transit-oriented development. And so in the land use table, you'll see a new column that is specific to that. Now, we can go about installing that two different ways. We can create just a new zoning district so people could rezone to that, or we can put in an overlay district in strategic parts of town. And that's what our comp plan directs us to do. So this UDC update, we will first create that overlay district, create those standards. So if you're going to build in that way, these are the specific design standards that we want you to follow. So the UDC updates go over what those are. We've made some changes to the townhome district, make them more, make sense when it comes to development. Right now, the lot width for a townhome is too wide. It's too wide. It doesn't work with townhome districts. And so our staff and Tina included, I mean, shout out to Tina, but she has to answer these questions. Why does it say that? Or can you explain this to me? And it doesn't make sense. I don't know why it says that, but that's what it says. So a lot of the updates that you see in the development code is just making things make sense, right? So let me give you another example. In the land use tables, spatial requirements, you have an R4 zoning district right now that the minimum lot width is 70 feet wide by 100 feet deep. So when a land developer comes in and say, we want to carve up this piece of land, every lot has to be 70 feet wide, every lot has to be 100 feet deep. Well, you've heard my tax advice and expertise, but math is not one of them. But that's 7,000 square feet. Well, the current standard is not 7,000 square feet. It was 8,750 or something like that. Some arbitrary number which comes from somewhere that I don't know, right? So we're not making lots smaller. We're making them meet the established lot width and dimensions that are already there. So we've done that in our agricultural districts. So if someone says, Lord forbid, they're making lots smaller in town. No, the established lot is what it is. The minimum area doesn't make sense for the design team that come and they carve up the land. Okay, well, you're telling me I need 70 feet by 100, but you're telling me I got to provide you a 10,000 square foot lot. In order for me to do that, that minimum lot width isn't 70, it's a lot, it's, 100 by 100 or, so that's some of the changes you'll see or that you've seen in the development update. We've looked at definitions. We've further defined what those are. When we talk about what multifamily is in town, we're defining that as 5 units or more. Right now, the definition is 3 units or more. However, in different parts of town, you can build a triplex, 3 units attached, or you can build a quadplex, 4 units attached. Is that a townhome or is that multifamily? Well, the ordinance right now says it's 3 or more. It's multifamily, so now you got to meet a whole different other set of standards. So we've made some revisions in that sense on definitions. And I think the last one that I'll touch on is authority, approval authority. A lot of cities, now that the state has said, if the plat meets the zoning district, you have to approve it. You can't deny it, even though we've had some try to. You can't deny it. If you vote against it, you open up the city to potential liability and lawsuits, right? Because it meets the zoning. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean you can. So the state did that in 2019, okay? Cities have now reacted to that and says, you know what? Why are we taking it to P&Z? Why are we taking it to council and subjecting all these folks to all these public hearings and things like that? When if it meets the zoning, the state says now you have to approve it. They've made that approval authority essentially administrative, right? And so it's in the intent that they had was to speed up development, right? And I don't know if that's what's occurred, but the approval changes that we've made is to make minor plats, replats, amending plat, things like that, more administratively approved. And that way you guys are tasked with looking at site plans and preliminary plats, final plats, the big ticket items instead of all the I would say minutia. There's a lot of infill development that a landowner says they inherited some land, I want to build a house. Can't give you a building permit because you got to go through the platting process. Well, how long is that going to take? Well, 60 days, 90 days, and so we're tired of breaking people's hearts, is what I'll say. So we're trying to simplify things in town. That's a change that we've made in this development code. We also made some changes in the Old Town District, again, directed by the comp plan, not that I had this bright idea. That doesn't happen very often. Last bright idea I had was to come to Kennedale, all right? I think it was a good idea. But the Old Town changes is what I mean by that is right now in Old Town, you can build a 3-plex and a quadplex. You can build a duplex here, but you can't build here in Old Town because Old Town has 4 districts. Old Town 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, in one part of town, we're right across the street, you can do something that you can't do on the other side of the street. And again, people are asking why, right? And now we won't have to tell them, I don't know, And so the Old Town District, you'll see some of those expanded residential offerings, right? Density hasn't changed in town. City Council decided in '23 that the max we want for either multifamily or townhome is 8 units an acre. That's not 8 units an acre with apartment complexes that you see going up all over town. That's more like 20, 30 units. And so in town, we hadn't made any changes to density. Okay, I want to be clear about that. But we'll go over some of these specifics with the public at the upcoming workshop I'm looking forward to, and we'll talk about what zoning is and how to find this information, so we're looking forward to that. But essentially, that's the update that you have. If you've had an opportunity, if there's anything that has caused you heartburn, hey, we're not looking for any contentions, debate about this. Tell us what you want, right? Try to be like Burger King, have it your way. And that's our intent. Tell me where to put the Ps, tell me where to put the Ss, things like that. I'm happy to do that. We'll make those changes, and then we'll have a grand old time, right? So, but happy to answer any questions that you have.
I just have one,
Okay.
because it just kind of makes me smile. Under your listing, the bullet listings under the summary for the update, we've got some items here that it seems like they're reactive. But my question is are they going to have any kind of retroactive influence? One specifically that I'm looking at is the revised, it's on the back page, revised vehicle barrier and guard requirements for elevated parking services or surfaces.
Good point. It retroactive, if there is an opportunity to improve building safety or pedestrian safety or mobility safety, we will take every opportunity to do. Having that as codified in the development code, having a standard. Right now, we don't have a standard that says, well, the building code has a standard for parking garages. So when you go to downtown Fort Worth, Sundance Square, some of these other towns, you're parking in a parking garage and it's at an angle and you'll see those steel cables. That's a vehicle barrier, vehicle guard. But there's nothing in the building code that says if I build a parking lot that's 20 feet in the air, right? Do I have to put a barrier around it, even though it's not technically a parking garage, it's a flat surface, but it's just elevated. I may have a retaining wall on one end. As far as reactive goes, that's absolutely, I would say, reactive, because we've had that happen in town and there wasn't a standard put in place to prevent that. Now, that particular specific situation has since been resolved, and I'll say to the benefit of the community, it was after a lesson learned, I'll just say, right? But moving forward, if we get any other development with elevated parking surfaces greater than a foot that have a drop off there, you need a vehicle barrier. And we're going to state that can I put a curb stop there? No, because now we have it stated that curb stops are not considered vehicle barriers or guards. Those are designed to prevent encroachment, going over a property line, going over other areas so that you keep away from a certain distance. But now we have that particular standard. So lessons learned, right? So we've done that. We've done the same thing with retaining walls. We'll be doing the same thing, looking at private roads and things like that. So, but that's to your point. That is a change that we're looking to make.
So that's that particular instance we're all painfully aware of. That's going to basically end up being kind of a legally non-compliant once this change goes into place because they're already there.
Yeah, they're there, but if the question is, like, if we have an
We're going to
existing.
enforce it, I guess is my next question.
Yes.
That's going to be enforced on a property that's already in existence.
It can be, in the sense that if they weren't there to date, right? If they weren't there to date, can the city go back and require them to put that in? That's probably going to be a fight if they don't want to do that, right? It would be because they can claim I'm non-conforming, but I'm legal non-conforming, right? So you can't make me do it. They're there already, and putting this in the code establishes they're there. They have to remain there. So if we have a vehicle barrier or guard that, even though it was added voluntarily, and they go away, this is how we ensure that those remain moving forward. And that provides us the tools that we need to point to. Because right now, I can't point to anything. Can't point to the building code. I can't point to engineering practice, anything like that that says you got to have it, right? Because if the slope is what it is, and it's a certain distance, I mean, I could have a vehicle parked here, and the retaining wall could be right where you're sitting. But if I shift it in neutral or drive and it goes that way, even though it's a flat surface and I drop 20 feet, if it sounds specific, coincidence only, I'll just say, right? But there's not a requirement if we're level for me to put a barrier despite the retaining wall being there. So that's the change that we're looking to put in place.
That's the only thing I had. Thank you.
All right. Any questions? No? Okay.
What's the time frame for this public workshop?
We are looking at June 16th. We want to make sure we're not conflicted with any other meetings. From what I understand, I'll say voluntold, right? This will be a later meeting than normal. I think we're looking at about 6, 7 o'clock. So Tina, we're working late that night. But we're looking to have that. The location is what we're trying to determine. We probably will have it here. We've got screens here. I'll put a table, and then we'll go over that, but we'll invite the whole community out. I guarantee council will be there. You guys are welcome to come out. Want you to be there, but I think it's something that's going to be staff-led. So it's not like an open meeting or anything like that we'd have to post notice for, but we're going to try to get the word out best we can. Social media, probably not going to do any mailers on it, but we'll get the information out there. And so, hey, well, I may even put on the flyer, come meet your planning and zoning commissioners. So, we may make it formal, black tie event. So, I'm just kidding, Tina. Yeah. Wear your best Wranglers. That's how we do it in Kennedale. But I think it'll be a great night.
Well, thank you very much. Entertain that young lady you got over there. Oh, that being said, I think it's, as the mayor's famous words, it's probably our time for our famous and favorite motion at this time. I'd like to motion to adjourn.
I'll second. Did you motion or
Did not motion, I'm calling for one, sorry.
I'll motion we adjourn?
All right.
I second.
Okay, all in favor of adjournment? That's 3-0, man. We are adjourned at